Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the HSBG podcast. I'm your host, Ed Collins. I'm here with my constant co-host, Shady Bunny. Shady, how you doing?
Good that you're asking, calls. I'm doing great, man. How have you
It's
been?
good. I've been solid. I've been solid. It's been a pretty eventful month. So busy that we haven't had time to record the podcast. Our fault, our fault. But I do think there have been some cool updates, some cool things to talk about that should fill this podcast up pretty cleanly.
Before we continue, your cameras, you need to move a
It's off
little.
to the side. Yeah,
The
yeah,
camera
yeah.
moved again on its own. It's crazy. The camera got a mind of its own.
What can you do
Well, I'll
there?
begin. I'll begin by taking the blame for this, rightfully so. I've not been able to make it to regular recording times. Super busy with my second daughter. Not quite yet running around, but just requiring more time. So, but we're here now, and we're ready to talk some Hearthstone. So, it should be fun.
Yeah, yeah. How do you want to start this, right? There's a lot. There's a lot going on,
I
right? We
think
could.
we just go chronological ish, where we just talk like, hey, you changed your whole schedule. You're now on European time. We did a bunch of duos. Like, how was that at the start? What was crazy, and how do we play duos now? And we'll play some duos after this.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I guess everything changed when Duros was announced. Like officially, here's the time. So I decided that to like fit the schedules because right now, like under normal circumstances, JD streams when I'm sleeping, and he stops streaming like soon before I wake up, right? So like I basically never really get to interact with him meaningfully with our normal schedule. But we didn't want to play duo, so I decided to switch my schedule up a little bit, well, a lot bit basically. So that his stream schedule like coincides a little bit more with mine, so we could do it better. So we did do that. It was a little rough at the beginning, for sure, but over it's been like a month or so, and it's a lot easier. I do feel tired when I'm supposed to be sleeping with this new schedule, which wasn't before. I kind of had to force myself, but now it's a little easier sleeping throughout. So it's generally been good, and we've been able to play duels because of that. So also just being able to talk more and just like be back to that kind of flow of things of interacting where it was a little bit hard. We really only interacted during like before these podcasts. That was like the best time. So it's been a nice change in that department.
Yeah, we sort of just had our once every 2 week catch up moments. So like, all right, good.
Yeah,
I'll see you in 2 weeks.
yeah,
Because get so busy, and then you know, when I'm at the PC, calls is sleeping. No, but that was super fun. Um, so yeah, I mean, Duo's released. We haven't done a podcast since Duo's released. The um, the game mode itself, it was just so exciting to think about that because we had played some TFT double up already. We had played some auto chess not quite duos where we were just on voice playing that together. But it just seemed so much fun, and it was a lot of fun, or it is still a lot of fun to be able to play the game, but then actually be a team, not just co-op, which we've done for many many times already, which is one person plays and the other person's in the call and you're thinking about the game together. Now you actually just get to pass things to each other, and there's just already been some fantastic games that we've had because of that. So I guess we just dive right into that and just talk some fun stuff that we've already done. I think the first thing that comes to mind for me at least is our bread and butter elemental pirate comp, which
yeah. It's
I guess you can explain sort of how it works.
it's really nice with teammates because some of the issues of Azerite normally is that you need pieces from the higher tiers, and if you level to the higher tiers, you lose a lot of the flexibility of being low level and being able to get like these really core tavern spells that get convolute or get clustered or so when you level up. So you just get double Azurite early, and then you just start pumping. Try to get strong early, and it's really nice when you have a teammate that's high tier. Usually with pirates, Tethys gives you a lot of money, and you can do a lot of things with that. So you can kind of just farm or give your teammate tons of resources, tons of spells to just pump, 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 pump. And then once you get big enough, you start giving them like 100 elementals, 200 elementals, and you can really just help your teammate like have a threat in both boards. So it's a really nice combo to do. Very fun to play. And we like playing,
Yeah.
like I like the Azeroth side. He likes the double Tethys, for some reason he likes that.
I think we can zoom out a little bit more even and talk about what usually
Sure.
winds up happening is that there is a carry and there's a support. And that's sort of, you might say like, well, why is that? Why does the game naturally flow to that? And generally speaking, if you pool your resources together on one player, you get a net higher benefit. So in the case here, it's like, let's say you both have one, and if you put one and one together, it's not two, but it's three. That's sort of how the math works. It's a weird duo math, but once a good example is, let's say one person has Messenger, which is the Elemental that is only available in duos. It gives +1/+1, but it also buffs your teammate's shop. So very strong. So let's say one person would have the brand and one person would have the Titus. That doesn't make sense. Give one person the brand and the Titus and the Rylak with the Messenger, and now you suddenly have way more buffs that one player is doing than both players would have combined. And it's very similar with other strategies where you just want to put more resources on one player, make them very strong, and then that player will funnel some of that strength back to the support player, or the support player will just play super scam board where it's just scam pieces. But that is weaker in duos a lot of the time, because if the scam player goes second, you end up throwing your Leroy and some leftover crap that was on the first board if your teammate doesn't kill it off. So, let's say there's, I don't know, some token minion that's still like one gas core that could kill two of your scam units or three or so. So it's pretty awkward. So the strategy that we've been favoring is one person gets strong and then funnels some of that strength back. So indeed, in the comp that Collins was describing, Collins stays on tier 3, pretty much doesn't level past from that. And on tier 3, he has a lot of cheap tavern spells. He uses the Azerites to make his tavern big. I like to level, I get Tethys, I roll, I get a lot of money, and then I can send cheap spells back down to Collins. Collins gets a huge shop, and then he sends big elementals back to me, and then boom, we go all in, and then I just sell my pirate engine.
Optimally.
Yeah, if we play it really well. If we play it really well, by the time that we're on sort of the second to last fight / the last fight, because duos is really high pace. Like once you eliminate one team, you're in the end game. That's deep end game already, because then suddenly oftentimes it's one more fight and you're in the top 2. Because you only have 4 different teams and you're one of them, right? So there's only 3 opponents. So the moment one person dies, it's really like, okay, get ready to all in and be semi all in already, unless you're fighting the ghost, of course. So that's been a little bit of an adjustment, but yeah, the whole thing's been super fun. I think one of the, sort of issues that you get with duos is that things are extremely forcible.
Homogenized compositions.
Yes. Because, so essentially with duos, you'd have to be really careful to not make one strategy stronger than the others, because then you're essentially going to put the players in a position where they have to play it. Whereas in solo queue, you really want to play it, but oftentimes you can't play it. Right? Where like, beasts are really strong, you need to play Banana Slammer. Sometimes you don't hit Banana Slammer. And it's like, even though it's optimal, you can't do it. But once there's 2 of you, the right play a lot of the time is to just roll for the strong composition if it's significantly more strong than the next best thing. And that's definitely what happened at the start. You want to talk about the composition? We essentially played 8 hours in a row one day.
The orchestra?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that I guess from the Blizzard team felt like a meme idea. They just didn't have like, what will high level players do?
I thought it was a meme when I first saw it.
Yeah, which is understandable, right? It looks memey, but they added so much battle cry support in the game that there was just, and it's still kind of true in my opinion that there's still too much battle cry support, where you can just really trigger battle cries over and over and over and over, and especially if you have the right minion types in, like Murlocs being in, things like that, you can really just forced triggers of battle cries like way more than you were ever able to do before. And that might not be a little bit true, right? Murkai has always been in with your Drakari, but like with the bridges that they've had, right, with Rylak when it was double proc and with the Draconic as well, there was just a lot of ways to just be strong while triggering scaling and have that scaling like also multiply when you hit the triples and things like that. So Orchestra was, the one that stood out over everything else, where it starts as +2/+2, but every time you proc it, it gains a little bit more stats. So you're getting 2/2 into 4/4, and it's also just can buff anything, which I think is kind of problematic. Where you can just make a big cleave, you can make a big divine shield, you can make a big anything you want, really, right? You could just make all your cards big, and every turn you stay alive, you get stronger, you get stronger, you get stronger. Just um, you were like we had games where we were making 9,000 attack health minions, right? And if that is ever a possibility, like in this current climate, something's wrong, right? That you can even do that, right? And once you see that happen, it's hard to say, oh, let's play something else. And the problem is, Orchestra has no minion type, so it's in every game, right? And then there's so many synergy pieces back then that there was like no minion lobby that you saw where you're like, oh, I can't do this. You're like, nah, there's a synergy piece. Okay, we're not getting 9,000 attack minions, we're getting 2,000 health minions. Like that's good enough to beat everything. So it just made sense to force like Orchestra once you really understood that principle.
Right. And just for anyone that's not familiar with the card,
Even more details. I love it, right? That's the classic shady
right. Well, I
follow-up,
always
right?
think about, okay, but what for the person that just puts on the
That
podcast
does
and be
has
like,
no idea
what
what
the
we're
hell
talking
is an
about.
orchestra, dude? Like, what's he talking about? It's
I
essentially
feel that.
it's like Battlecry Pogo Hopper. It's a
Yeah.
card that gets stronger the more it gets triggered. So Orchestra gives +2/+2 to a minion as a battle cry, and then the other text is gets stronger for every orchestra that's played, or like future orchestras are now
Triggered.
stronger,
Every
whatever.
triggered.
Yeah,
It got changed to
it
play
first said
triggered.
triggered, and now indeed it got nerfed to played, and that definitely needed to happen because over the span of 8 hours, I think we played one Azurite Pirate game. We lost that, and we pretty much won everything else, or like maybe a second place here and there. Playing Orchestra, it was so silly. And what Colin says is very true. Draconic is a dragon and a Naga, so none of those can be in. But wait, Murkai is a Murloc. Oh wait, so Murlocs need to be out as well. Well, Rylak is a beast. Rylak could be in.
So you need to not have Beast, Dragon, Naga, Murloc.
Yeah, and then,
All
well,
not in.
maybe you're a Shudderwock. You can kind of do it regardless.
Right. And then you need to also not have heroes with
Maybe you're a
synergy.
Jandis. Oh, now you can do that as well. So it's,
Yeah.
it was, it says a lot that over the span of 8 hours, any game we wanted to play it, which is basically any game but one, right? One of the games we said, let's try something else, and promptly got destroyed. They're like, okay, we can't play anything else. We have to force this. It was essentially 8 hours in a row of forcing one comp, and I think that's the first time ever for me that I've played the same comp 8 hours in a row, which is just ridiculous to say. And it also definitely has something to do with the duos format. There's two people rolling, and you know how strong it is. So you're just going to push for that composition no matter what, and then feed it to one player.
To be fair, we did that in TFT, right? Like, let's be honest, right?
Yeah,
We did
but
that in
TFT is very different, right? In TFT, forcing stuff is common. Battlegrounds is much less about forces. Well, see, it's very different.
I don't know if that's like super true.
It's for me, it's definitely true. And the reason here is that every turn in Battlegrounds, you have to spend your gold. In TFT, you can pass. You can say, let me just hold my shit. I don't want to buy. Let me hold my shit. I don't want to buy. I'm just going to level. I'm just going to level. I'm just going to hold. You can't do that in Battlegrounds. In Battlegrounds, you got to buy every turn.
Well,
so
during that is leveling, I guess. Like holding is leveling.
Sure. And, in TFT, you can do that much more, right? Whereas
Yeah, you
can
have more
hold
health,
an econ.
to level.
You can do losing streak. If you lose streak in BGs, you lose streak right into the next game. Like, there's no such thing as losing streak
Would you
in
like
BGs.
getting money if you lost? If you lose three?
Oh,
Like, if you lose
God.
2 in a row, you'll get like a coin or something.
Battlegrounds is, I don't think it would really matter. Battlegrounds is so incredibly tempo heavy. Winning is everything. You got to win your fight. Like, high level players can usually just choose to lose one round. That's it, right? It's like one significant round, basically 1 minus 15, right? Like,
Okay, hear me out, right? Like, okay, it's turn 1, you lose. It's turn 2, you lose. You get a coin for turn 3. Like,
right,
isn't
like that.
that meaningful
Well,
already?
sure. But I'm talking, those are inconsequential fights, right? Sort of. I
Sure,
think once
sure. Okay,
we,
and then you go straight to 3, and then you get an extra 2 coins or something. Shit.
right,
And now you have
So,
3.
but I would say if you're going to introduce the concept of lose streaking or whatever, you would essentially
Yeah.
open that up starting turn 3 or something. I don't think you would
So you
be
wouldn't do a turn 1 and
Well,
2,
then you're going to create this really unhealthy meta where people just always hold because, like,
or
you'd
they just
rather.
buy the bacon. I see.
Yeah, you'd rather sack
Yeah.
health for a coin because that coin is so important for turn 3. Because on turn 3 you
Open
can
it up
coin
turn
double
3.
buy.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Like,
And
make
I
people
think
not.
personally, right, if they would open that up on 3, I would not tank an extra round to get a coin. Like, screw that.
No, probably not, right? But it's interesting, right? Like, it's not about intentionally doing it. It's about like you're losing constantly.
Right,
Okay,
just
here,
like
have
a
a
little bit of
coin.
a help.
Yeah, like
I think
it
they,
might not save you, but who knows? Like, you pay 3 gold for a coin sometimes. Like, yeah,
well,
like, now
they
you don't have to pay
must have
3
looked
gold.
at that already, right? They must have looked at the
Nah,
ability to. I can guarantee
they
you
didn't.
that, Collins. They have thought about, hey, what if we gave losing players extra
But
money
they
or
didn't.
so?
They didn't make a playtest demo of it. That's why. That's why.
Yes, they probably did the early thinking and then came to the like, this is a bad idea. So let's not turn it into a demo. But sure, I
Let's
mean,
let's let's see the playtest demo. You know, maybe it feels great. Like,
I don't know. You have 40 health a lot of the times, and you take damage in
We're
increments of
playing
15.
patchwork, Shady. We have 60 health. It's fine.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Jesus, man, even patchwork. Like today, Collins in this meta,
Yeah.
on turn 6, I had a 50%
Yeah.
to die. On turn 6.
Yes, I've
And
been there.
I didn't throw, right? I went 3 on 3, but my first chop was 2 of those Quillboar that make
Dude,
gems when they take damage.
I know the life.
It's
dude.
insane. Like it's such a damage heavy meta. It's crazy. Like I was trying to win fights and I had a 50% to die on turn 6.
Yeah.
The fucked up thing is I won that lobby. Right?
Yeah, I knew it.
I could have got 8.
I knew it, right?
I could have got
you would
8.
not. This would not be your statement at 50% to die on 6. You'd be like, I died on 6.
Yeah, for
can't
sure.
believe-
Yeah, you're totally right. If I died, it was like I died on 6. It was such bullshit.
But you won that lobby.
So it's all fine. The fact
I knew
that
something was wrong when you phrased it like
it was
that.
too happy. Yeah.
Of course.
But no,
Fair enough.
all of that to say that I don't think you can
Orchestra's
force.
kind of broken. I hear you.
Well, no, the larger thing we're talking about is can you force in battlegrounds? And like to some degree, yes, but the TFT is far more forcible, right? There's guys that go masters playing one comp essentially.
Yeah.
Right. Just no way well enough. And like in BG's no way, right? You tell Jeef like, hey Jeef, you can only play Quillboard to climb. Good luck, right? This is like
Yeah, well, it
it's
can't.
no way.
Like it has to be like dragons. No, like you have
Even
to be
dragons,
inner,
fuck
right?
that, man.
You're integrated to the finals, my friend.
No. I get it. But I mean, tell Jeef to climb. Be like, you can only play dragons. Like he's getting 8s for sure. There's gonna be 8th placements.
Yes, that's not a fair.
And then he
statement, you know,
loses like so much fun. No, but I'm saying there's people in TFT with the equivalent that only play dragons that get the master.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's not like the highest tier, right? Like you know, like you're
Okay,
talking
tell
defense,
me to climb and only play dragons. I'm also not. I'm definitely
Yeah.
nowhere. I'm getting nowhere near my normal placement.
Sure.
I'm just saying, like, I don't
agree.
think you can really deny that TFT is much more force friendly. I don't think you can force it
You,
battlegrounds.
you can theoretically I do agree it like you can't say, oh, I'm only going to do this, but you can say, oh, if I get a good dragon game, I'm
course.
going to force it every
course.
time, you know, and you could do well with
No.
it.
You say every time. That sounds like you say you're going to play it anytime the game allows you to play it, and that's fair.
Yeah.
Right. But in TFT, you can
Yeah.
say I'm literally going to play it every game. There's definitely been metas. I'm not sure if that's the meta right now, but I played TFT to a pretty high level as well. And there's been metas where if you just want to play mages every single game, that's what you do. You just play mages every single
I
game.
did not have that experience per se.
Right.
You know, but it was more like I had like 3 or 4 comps, which I think you can kind of do.
Yeah, again, right? Like
too.
in like the highest level, yes, of course, you got to be able to be flexible because you play against people who, when they see a certain start and they can use it properly, they're gonna have a huge advantage if you can only play one type. Of course. I was just saying that it's much better in TFT to do that than in Battlegrounds.
Here in this Battlegrounds podcast, we were talking about TFT and metaforcing. Welcome. Welcome, everyone.
Well, that's what we do. We talk about Battlegrounds. That's our whole thing.
You're sure. But yeah, all right, whatever.
People come here to hear us talk some shit about Battlegrounds. That's good.
But overall, I mean, it was good. It like playing duos. It was fun. I guess here's where you say the bet. Here's where we blame YouTube, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think just in general viewers, right? So unfortunately, duos hasn't been as popular of a format. Mainly YouTube, some Twitch, and I think that the reason is essentially that it's a very different experience as a viewer where a lot of people are down to watch duos, don't get me wrong, right? But if you get a significant portion of the audience that says I prefer to watch solos, that has a big impact on the numbers. And essentially, what I assume is you're going from, oh, I'm watching Shady or Collins or RDU or wherever you're watching, because I saw it in, a lot of people played a lot of duos at the start and then switched back to solos. You watch them play and you're used to them just talking to chat, explaining their plays. There's some banter, there's some back and forth. And once you introduce a second person that they play duo with, all the focus is on the duo, right? They're constantly talking, they're thinking about the comp. There's no real dead time most of the time because you're just, you're playing and then you're talking about the game or there's some banter or whatever, but there is essentially no real space for chat. Whereas in solos, the reason why I think Battlegrounds is such an extremely chat-friendly game is after you've done your turn, that's essentially it. Then there's chat and there's backseating and there's talking and you could talk about the fight and this and that. And in solos, that is very, very different, right? You're watching two people play and talk with each other, and there's essentially not very much chat back and forth. And yeah, there's also a really good piece in chat as well. A lot of the people that were watching weren't playing duos, so it's almost like a different game. Like, oh, I watch this person, so I know what to play when I play on my own. But he's playing strategies that are completely useless for me because this card does not exist in solos.
There's no catch in solos,
right? There's no catch. There's no messenger, and even if there's certain strategies like, let's say I played a lot of pirates or this or that, it's so different that it doesn't really matter. So I think all those things combined
is different in solos. I can confirm.
Very different. Yeah, it's like, what? There's no portal that's pooping out spells. Like, where's all the free shit? Where's my free shit?
Yeah, it's different for sure.
So yeah,
Elo, I can get away with it, but once I've climbed with it, it's
yeah. Now
I need
Collins
double
is on.
Azurite, and then I still have to level for Shell Elemental like later.
Collins always telling me like,
I have to hope that there's no
fine.
dragons in the lobby. Like if dragons are in the lobby, there's no way that's even.
Well,
anyways,
if dragons are in, it's Blaster Wildfires. I think that works if you're doing that.
Yes, that's true. That is.
But you gotta no wildfire is no party really. Like you gotta have like 50, 60 damage wildfires, I think. Then you're safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about the dragon comp as well. Right?
Maybe Max. Sorry, if there's no Max, if Max are in the lobby, it's
right. Yeah, Max will smack you. That's true.
Yeah. Max will smack everybody. Actually,
Max are good.
Yeah.
The whole point here was essentially to say that we played basically nothing but duos at the start, and now it's essentially going to be duos more near the end of the stream or now after the podcast. It's more going to be like just a bonus rather than the meat and the potatoes of the content, which is fair. It is indeed what it is. If
I'm a little sad about it, so I'll be honest.
Yeah. No, I mean, for me, if I just get to play with my friend for a living, it's fantastic, right? You just sit down. It's like, this is like back from when I just completely no-lifed other games. That was the whole life, right? The whole, God, I remember just days where I would just be, sick at home from school, right? Then go to school, and me and my cousin would just hop back, on Skype back in the day, and then you just play League an entire day. It was like, all right, that was fun. And that's honestly essentially what this felt like, where wake up, hop on Discord with Collins, start playing duos pretty much the entire day. We could, we had days where we just went like 9 hours in a row or something. That was awesome. So yeah. But we did learn a lot of stuff during those, and there's lots of other stuff to talk about as well, guys. So the thing that Collins was touching on for a little bit there, unless you want to still talk about anything about this, Collins.
No, move it on.
Right, I was gonna move on to dragons, right? Because I think that is absolutely something that is worthy of talking about on the podcast. So you said, hey, if dragons are in the lobby, I can't do this. Like, why is that? What's going on with dragons right now?
Tier 4 dragons are very consistently strong, and they skill in attack like incredibly well, that if you don't have any counterplay, they'll always beat you. Now, of course, you can run counterplay, but players not in tournaments, they're not as focused on buying their counterplay in a timely manner as they should.
Yes.
So you can definitely get into situations where you see how they can beat you, but they either don't see it, which is weird because there's two tech answers now instead of one, or they just don't care and they want to beat you in their own way. Which I respect personally. I respect as they die.
Yeah, Collins respects people that aren't trying to win and just be like, oh, he didn't buy a Leroy. Good on him. Good on him.
No. I respect them trying to win through stats. That's all. You can buy Leroy's for sure, but I'll just judge you a little bit harder. That's all.
That's fine.
But essentially, what dragons can do is there's a couple key pieces. One is poets, which can make your adjacent dragon stats from battle permanent, and then there's Nightbane, which will
right. It's not just stats, shields, reborn, everything.
Sure, enhancements including shields, stuff like that. There's Nightbane, which will give your dragons attack, and then there's a couple like other key pieces. I would say Amber is also very important because that gives you a little bit of stats, but more importantly, it gives you some shield. So if you have those three pieces, you can get shield on all of your dragons, as well as getting high attack on pretty much all your dragons as well. So that can really deal with a large variety of compositions. There's a couple archetypes that can really deal with it, namely undeads can do it. It is kind of hard. I've seen undeads just not have enough stats, funny enough. Beast can do it if you have a Knight Goldrin comp as well, but once again, that's also kind of hard. The easiest one is probably Mechs, where Mechs with Divine Shield can blow up everyone's shield and then get their shield back with Deflectos, and then just trade 2-for-1 or 1-for-1 the remainder, and that can be really good. So it's really hard to deal with Mech specifically. You want to be careful if you're trying to play dragons in a Mech lobby, as well as others for sure.
Yes, the whole issue, what Collins mentioned, right, is that while there are theoretical counters, if you win by default, you are just going, assuming the opponent doesn't counter perfectly, that comp is way too good, because most players most of the time will not counter perfectly. And this is an argument that chat brings up a lot of the time when we complain about dragons or something. Oh, but undead comp can beat it, right? It's like, well, first of all, you're playing undead, so you're losing against pretty much everything else. That's not good, right?
I've had comps that I know beat me die to someone else.
Yeah, you just gotta outlive them
to the
for a
ghost
second.
of that guy that I died
like,
to.
hey, you
right?
there?
But I'm still alive, and then I win, right?
Yeah,
So
you
it's
just
okay.
You just need one guy with 2 minions that have 150 health. Be like, clean the undead guy up for me, so then I can one shot your big minions with my dragons. Thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah.
So there's an insanely high value in playing dragons right now. So yeah, if you're listening to this and the patch hasn't gone out yet, which I assume will happen any day now, right?
Tuesday, right? Next Tuesday.
Right. I mean, I don't know if there's anything announced, but anyways, I'm assuming it'll get nerfed because it's so oppressive. So the whole thing with dragons, indeed, what Colin said is they make their enhancements permanent, and the way it works right now is that you're essentially always going to get enough damage to one-shot your enemy units. Pretty much no matter how good of a game they've had. If you're having a good dragon game, your opponent will not be able to make enough health to not get one shot. Like, let me just repeat that. That is ridiculous. Pretty much no matter how good of a game your opponent has, you will one shot every single one of their units. That's bonkers. That's bananas.
Unless you're having a bad dragon game.
Yeah. So okay, so let's just paint a picture, right? Assuming that you triple into a Yulon, which will make your minions golden. Assuming you have Poet, Nightbane, Promodrake. There's no way. If you have Yulon... Well,
you want 2 Nightbanes.
Sure,
so
2 Nightbanes. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a very good specification, right? The reason why we want 2 Nightbanes is so one can buff the other, and then you're getting some really nasty scaling.
Yeah. Then you're good.
Yeah,
I think if you have the 2, then you're
right.
good.
And the issue is you can get all of that while never leaving tier 4. You can build a composition on tier 4 that can one-shot any comp in the game. Like, stats-wise, right? You can have multiple bodies, sure, but any comp in the game currently can get one-shotted by this tier 4 dragon comp, which is so silly to say. Like, I've had several games where my dragons have 10,000 damage, and I'm just sitting here like, I don't care how big your Quillbore are, buddy. No blaster, I'll kill you. Like, have your Pokies, have your Charlies. It doesn't matter. I'm going to one-shot your 4,000 health Quillbore. And that's so silly to say. You're going to one-shot his 4,000 health Quillbore. It's just pop gone. So, I really, really hate it whenever there's these out-of-the-box compositions. Just add a little water and stir on tier 4. That's essentially it, right? Like, no real risk having to be taken. And the biggest problem for me is that I kind of have to play it now. And it's so frustrating because you're just donkey rolling on 4. And it feels so unfulfilling. Like, I feel like zero agency, well, not zero, right? You can do some little things. Like, if Undead are in, you can reborn all your dragons. You can get a little bit of an edge in the mirror. You can have, like, the right leveling curve. You can do a little bit of refining here and there. But for the most part, I'm rolling on 4 for Poet. And I don't really feel like I'm playing the game. It's just a rolling for Poet simulator. And that's just a bad feeling for everyone involved. The player that wins doesn't feel accomplished. It's super frustrating if you miss. You have all the pieces, but you're just missing one. And it's super frustrating when you're losing to the person who clearly also just sat on tier 4, tripled into a Yulon, and just rolled for it. So, yeah, that for me is like the most annoying thing in the game. Whenever there's something that's way too strong, so you have to play it, and it's super easy to get.
Yeah, I'm not as negative with it, but I do. There are games where I'm like, it's because it's not the only culprit, I guess, for me, where I'm like, there are games. So I go into a match in solos and I look at the minion types and I'm like, okay, dragons win this lobby. Oh, mechs win this lobby. No, Quillbores actually win this lobby. Okay, if I can go double Tethys, then that's the line, right? Oh, there's a Galliwix. Oh, him with Tethys, he wins this lobby. Like, so you can see what minion types are in, and that's more due to a case of there's just like there's too many weak options where there's only a couple of strong options, and then the strong options like play rock paper scissors with each other, right? Where like Quillbores will lose to dragons, right? And then mechs kind of is like a Spock right now, where mechs beat everything, right? But like demons will beat like anything without stats, right? If you have a big demon that you can reborn, a lot of times that's Chimera, right? Especially since you can get Divine Shield on Chimera pretty easily, reborn at that, especially if undeads are in. Then you can undead there's that's really hard to beat, but like dragons, in a lot of cases, right? If they don't have the right sub, they just still one shot everything. So and it's just like you look at the minion types, and because there's a decent amount of weak ones, you can see, only mechs or dragons, or only mechs or this other type can win, right? So I have to play one of these 2 comps essentially. Happens a lot to me when I see the game. Now it's helpful because like I know where I'm going for, and if the other players don't have that same read, right, then they'll be a little bit slower, or they'll be undecisive, right? Because like sometimes I try to play not often, but sometimes I try to play like Beast, right? And I just get absolutely blown out by this like basic comp, basic core board, basic mech thing. And it's just like, why did I ever try to go this other comp? Because it like against good players, they'll just destroy you. So it just limits your options. At least for me, when I queue into a game. So even though dragons are one of those culprits, they're not the only culprit. So it's like kind of fine. You could argue like they're the easiest one to force. Where I don't even know if that's true because mechs are kind of also like they're not as like because sometimes you need like scrap which is of tier 5, right? You need other pieces, but double deflector like that gets you quite far to do what you want. So it's not like it's not like you're rolling on 3, right? It is different in terms of game plan since the pieces are in different places where beatbox is also pretty key. That's a 6, right? And you have the 5s, right? And then Quillbars is very high tier, so you're not really you have to kind of get lucky or have a like a hero that can really let you do that very quickly. Where I guess dragons feel the worst because it's like, oh, I go to 4 and then I roll, and then that's like it, right? And then there's no there's no way of spicing it up, right? Like you like if you level it's wrong. Like it's like the 6 drop dragon doesn't is worse than most of the 4s, right? I'd rather have a poet than the 6 drop cost dragon, right? And that's wrong if that's the name of the game, right? So that's why it feels the weirdest, but there's just a lot of archetypes that are just way better than the others, so you're kind of forced to play that position. And just dragons the one with the lowest curve over averagely overall. This is the difference for me.
I think for me, why it's different is that mechs, even though they're very strong and safe, and when you get them up with 2 deflectos, there's still counterplay with I can taunt Leroy's and catch them off guard. I can actually be bigger than them. That's a thing. You could, right, have a good game and be bigger than mechs, while not super
I
likely.
don't know. Like once you add beatboxer, that's kind of hard. Like you have
Sure,
like
but then
600
we're
divide.
talking, oh, but then they've played enough and they've already hit their 6. Like that's still a bit conditional. And you, even though they hit beatboxer, you could have a good enough game on a different type and be bigger, right? Like you could have a Quill game and
Sure,
be bigger than
sure.
Mechs.
Yeah,
You
well,
could,
Quell is one of those problems that
right, but
you don't
that's
know.
what I'm saying. Like where you could have a Quill game, and if it's not like absolutely bonkers, it is possible to still beat the Quill player if you have your own Bramble Witch and Leroy. You have your own big minion. They don't have, Whereas with dragons, I feel like it's so, well, you need exactly blaster and cleave, and if you don't, your stats don't matter. It's, yeah, for me
Or
that's like so.
reborn, or big reborns, or be stuff like
I don't even know if
if
big
you.
reborns are enough. Right? I mean, how
I've
how big
I've
are we
lost a big
talking? Yeah, but
reborn,
how big are we talking?
like 60.
How are you getting
You know.
60? You just mean like undead, right? But we talked about that, right? Sure,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah. I mean
counter, but then
undead.
you're
Yeah.
playing undead. Like
Yeah. Okay. I mean, good undeads can win, right? So it's not like
a good anything
it's
can win. A good
yeah,
beast
good.
comp can
Well,
win,
not
right?
beast. I don't think I've
I've
seen
won
a
with
beast.
beasts for sure.
Uh,
I
you
got
winning is not like the same as like general
Macaw Goldren.
people.
Macaw Goldren can do it. Like
Yeah,
you get a golden reborn Macaw, you get Titus, you get Goldren.
I had Macaw Gold and Titus, right? Yeah, and it didn't feel like it was enough.
Yeah, but I mean,
Sometimes.
was any of it golden, right? Like we're talking, like what we're talking
No.
about. This is not a
Oh,
discussion.
yeah, everything was golden. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
This is not a
Never mind.
discussion.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
The discussion is can it win if it high rolls, right? And all 10
Uh,
types can win if they high roll.
sure.
It's not our beast
Okay.
good. No, beasts are garbage. Please don't play beasts for crying out loud, guys. But it could win, right? Like theoretically it could win. So
Yeah, sure.
that
All
was just
right.
my point
Yeah.
with undead. Like, yeah, theoretically undead can win as well, but I mean, still your EV of playing undead is pretty low. Like you're
Sure.
losing MMR
Sure.
on
Sure.
average if
See,
you're
yeah,
playing
I got
undead.
you. I got you.
So it's not a direction you want to go in. Anyways, whatever. It is fair though that there definitely are certain things that are stronger than others. And I think that's also to be expected. They've done such a huge patch, right? Not only, and they also have to work on duos now to balance that, and bug fixes and all that stuff. So it's fine. I have, like, the game has honestly over the last few years been great. So I have no, I don't think that they're going to leave the game in a state where I'm just like, this is like a glaring weakness, right? Like you shouldn't have, like what Collins just mentioned is silly, right? Like the tier 6 dragons are garbage. Like every time I see someone playing Caligos, I just like he'd pick Caligos instead of staying on 4 and rolling for the good dragons. So it seems like a bad idea. Which
I
is,
had a Caligos game
I
yesterday.
mean, again, right? Can you win with Cali? Sure.
No, I didn't win.
Right, but like, what's the amount of Cali wins compared to the amount of Poet wins, right? I mean, that's gotta
Yeah,
be
that's true.
that's
Yeah.
gotta be an astronomically low number. But anyways, the point there is that I mean, unless it's very very specific circumstances, you shouldn't want to play the tier 4 variant over the tier 6 variant. And right now, like Caligos is so weak compared to Poet, it's ridiculous.
I
So
really did not understand the give Callie 2 health buff and call it a day. Like, okay, buddy.
yeah, I think that's the levers that they have available immediately. So they're just like pull the lever, like change a percent here or there. But yeah, no, obviously it's maybe a little bit more insulting if anything. Where you're like, oh yeah, you run the risk of people thinking that's your idea of a balanced bat, right? I mean, obviously, like people that are used to it, they were like, no, it's not like they said, well, we're done here.
This will fix
The
Callie,
game is
yeah.
balanced, right? Like that's it. That's all Callie needed. So, but there's some people that actually think that, or that want to use it as an excuse to say that, right? I think it's a little bit of both. Like they kind of know that they didn't, yeah, but it's fun to say like, oh my god, they are so stupid. Do they think that the 2 HP is going to change anything, right? So I think from that aspect, you could almost look at it as like a risky buff where you say, this is not really going to change enough, and people are going to think that this is all we're going to do. So let's just, wait until we do a big fix. But yeah, no, I mean, playing Caligos right now feels horrible. I think, we can talk a little bit, I guess, about the tournament. It sort of blends in nicely. We saw Beater play one Caligos game during a 3-day tournament that Collins and I casted, which was super fun. And I think outside of that, I'm not sure if we saw a single Cali all weekend.
I mean, 3 days doesn't really accurately describe, right? It was what? 34?
34
No,
games.
34 games, right? Yeah. Like one Cali by 8 players, times 34. Like that's a lot.
That's sad. Like, compare that to the other Dragon Comp, which we easily saw, 20 times minimum, like across all players, all games, easily 20 Dragon games.
262, if the math's right.
Right, across all players, across all games, sure.
Yeah, like that's a whole type you're not playing, really. It's
well, I mean, they
little
were
bit-
playing dragons. It's just like the tier 6 dragons were not being played.
272. I was off by 10. Sorry. Okay.
That's okay. The podcast audience, we'll fix that.
They'll criticize me. They'll crucify me for that. I don't know.
He mathed wrong. Get him, boys.
Anyways, yeah, I mean, it's just like showcasing how unlikely top players really want to go with tier 6 dragons, right? Like they just don't see it as a win condition. Maybe if you're looking for something else and you hit in, there's nothing better, right? Like there are still bad 6s, right? Zap doesn't give you direction, so sometimes you just don't want it, right? So Cali is like, and you have a dragon on your board or something, you're like, okay, but you're not happy to really get it.
Absolutely. We can, I guess we can give a little bit of a background on like the tournament and what was going on, and if people want to watch it, right, if you want to catch up on it, maybe we're not aware, there's a whole tournament out here, guys, for you Battlegrounds aficionados, which is publicly available. You can go watch it, you can binge it. The tournament was held on May 3rd, 4th, 5th.
3rd to 5.
Yeah. 3, 4, 5. The English broadcasts are available on RDU's channel on Twitch. That is RDU Live on twitch.tv. And Collins and I were invited to be the casters for the English broadcasts, which was
I wanted to upload it to
very
YouTube,
fun.
and then I forgot.
But now you know. Now you've been
Now it's too
reminded.
late,
What? No, let's go. I mean, I'm still thinking about grabbing one of those games for YouTube. I'm like,
Sure.
one of like the insane games, like maybe the Terran game where he hero power to imp, like that was so sick. Yeah, like it's just fantastic event, guys. The whole set was fantastic. So first of all, they flew out 24 players to Dubai. that's already crazy, right? Like, when's the last time we had something like that? I think the thing that came closest,
The Tice's
yeah, the thing
event.
that came the closest was Tice's Tavern, which was super
Yeah.
fun. Like, that was, so I can't even imagine how good the Dubai event was, right? Because I already thought that the Tice event was phenomenal, right? It was fantastic. I had so much fun. I was so happy that I qualified for that, and then Collins and I were able to go there together. But yeah, this felt like honestly, the Tice's Tavern also had a nice set, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah. It was
It was
really
good.
cool.
Let's
Yeah.
not knock Tice's event. Tice's event was up there, absolutely.
Why must fruits be compared? They're
Yeah,
both
right.
great.
Maybe
I
Tice is an apple and this is a pear. It's okay, right?
they're both great.
So yeah, sorry guys, I haven't disabled the sub alert. Let me turn that down for podcast. Hey, Safe Steps. Thank you. Welcome back. The the thing is that the casters were unfortunately not flown out to Dubai. So Collins and I were at
I still
home.
get comments like, "How was Dubai?" And I'm just
I
like,
know.
"It was good. It was
Someone asked
good,
me like, how's
whatever."
the jet lag? Not too bad, right? That means we did such a good job. It was like we were there, Collins. It was
Yeah,
like we were
yeah,
there. They
yeah.
couldn't notice. Yeah, but anyways, so all the players were flown out to Dubai, and the tournaments follow the structure like this. You have your first day where your group seating is random, and you are in lobbies of 8 naturally. So 24 players, 3 lobbies of 8. Each lobby plays 4 games, and it's a points-based structure where number 1 gets 10 points, number 2 8 points, and so on. And then once you're at number 5, it goes down by 1 point. So you have 10, 8, 6, 4, 3, and then down. And the top 4 of it's not the top 4, it's just the highest point earners. Yeah, so the highest point
Yeah.
earners were grouped together. So when you have the end of day 1, you essentially look at who are the 8 people with the most points that was earned during your lobbies. They get grouped together in lobby 1. Then you have lobby 2 and lobby 3. Now you might say like, whoa, is that a little weird? So you get punished for being put in group 1, right? Because you performed really well, and now you're with all the other players that performed really well.
Yeah, you're at the monsters.
Yeah, you're in the killer lobby, right? Killer 1, that's the sorry, lobby 1, that's the killer lobby. But the reward is if you make it to lobby 1, your chances of qualifying are much higher because the top 5 players of that lobby advance to day 3, whereas in lobby 2 it was only 2, and then in lobby 3 it was only 1 person. So we can talk about the competitive sort of viability of
Integrity.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
integrity I think is even like too strong. I think viability, like is this
Right,
the
right.
fairness? Is this like the apart from that, I thought it was super cool because especially as from a casting point of view, no one's out. They won.
Day 1, yeah, which is very hard to do.
Yeah, like you've done a
Um,
lot of work, right? Obviously, you've put yourself in a much better spot, but everyone had hope at the start of day 2. Every single person was like, I can make it.
it was
Obviously,
really
yeah,
only
go
after
ahead.
turn 14 of the last game did you really lose all hope. That's
Yeah,
a joke.
that's a reference to RDU. RDU was in it to go to day 3 until turn 14 of the last game on day 2. Well, from his lobby. That was unreal. Now, obviously, we sort of saw it coming a little bit, but mathematically, turn 14 is when he was out.
I never gave up Shady. I
Now,
did not see it coming. It blew me away when I was like, "Oh, he
right,
lost."
our little banners go
I
like,
was
go
crying in
RDU.
the corner. Yeah.
Does this mean we don't get paid?
Spoilers.
Oh no.
Yeah.
We needed the prize money.
That's true.
All right, no. That was fantastic. Oh boy.
Justin, Collins and Shady did not get. No, I'm kidding. Let's not even make a joke about that.
No. It was really and the production and everything was great. They had their own bar. They hired a Bob who looked just like Bob. It was just
What does that mean?
bartending. I mean, they put him in the jacket, right? He
That's
had the
true. That's true.
towel. He was fixing the mugs, right? It was perfect.
He was saying inspirational quotes after every loss.
Oh god, that must have been really funny if like Silvername walks off and is like, "You got this." Gets like punched or something. Oh god.
I would have loved to. If I was doing that job, I would learn all the Bob quotes just to be like,
Yeah, you
I
would, because I don't know, maybe they just told this guy like, hey, wear this,
yeah. I
tend to the
got you. I
bar.
got you. I know it's
It would be
I
great
hear
if you
you.
played a lot of BGs. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Then,
yeah, yeah.
you could go that extra step. But there were interviews, there were little game shows for the break times. Everything was really well done. So I had a really good experience with that. And apart from that, there were also just some cool meta things that we could see
Yeah.
forming. I would say the biggest thing, right, where Collins and I were saying before the tournament, well, on ladder, Quillbore is dominating, but we don't know actually if that's going to translate well into the tournament. And it really didn't. Quillbore were not
No.
dominating at all in the
But
tournament.
I will say that is not fully fair because mechs were reintroduced the day before. And I think
Yeah.
if mechs were like had been in the game like a little bit longer, people would have understood. Oh, mechs have a real nice matchup into Quillbores early that can really force them to do other things or so. So I do think it mattered a little bit that there was a patch that reintroduced mechs a little bit. But true. Overall true. Quillbores did not dominate even with that caveat, did not dominate as much as I would have expected.
It was really this. It's almost like it was a theoretical build, if that makes sense. Where it's like, yeah, theoretically you could play Quillbore, but you did, man. You did.
Theoretically, you could get 3 6 drops and a 5 drop like perfectly on your board before, and then start scaling from there before people have answers in a tempo heavy like high tier meta game tournament. Yeah, theoretically, I hear you.
It's probably
Um,
the thing that was the coolest to see on day one is how highly the cultist build performed. So
mm,
pretty much and I think it's because it was just very, like it was pretty much always strong because you could just play whatever, which most of the time
yeah,
meant Chimera plus whatever you had, mechs
yeah,
ideally,
yeah.
and then you just buff up the Chimera, and then you get cultist, and you revive the Chimera over and over. And that was absolutely something we saw many times where in demon lobbies, people were absolutely favoring a cultist endgame. Whereas with Quillbore, you don't really have a great Quillbore early game. Sure, you can hit a Piper and a Jazzer and stuff, but it's not like you're strong. You only really come online with Quillbore when it's Pokey, Drakari, Charlie.
You literally don't need any of the early Quobers. Like
Yeah,
you can just like if you just start with
you,
Pokey
yeah.
Troga, like
Those could be your
played
very
no
first
other
Quillbore.
Quillbore
Yeah, you're
minion
right.
at all, and you're good. Yeah,
That's true. That's absolutely, and which makes the type in its own like weird, because
yeah,
you're
yeah.
you're pivoting into it, or you have a fairly weak board, and a fairly weak board is a death sentence in these
Mm,
lobbies. Deflecto was super popular, which makes
yeah.
sense. It's such a good early tempo minion. A little bit of a surprise, but makes sense in hindsight, was how good Hooktail was. Hooktail is the tier 3 dragon pirate that gives +1 attack to your
Mm,
board every time you cast a tavern spell. So the players were really favoring Pharynx, which is the Divine Shield minion with Avenge 4, give a minion Divine Shield, and Hooktail. So Divine Shields early, which oftentimes included Pharynx, spam tavern spells, get a lot of attack on your board, and then reset Divine Shields. And that was a super popular early slash mid game that we saw in the tournament. And honestly, if you just had Pharynx Hooktail and you spammed a lot of tavern spells, a lot of the time that was kind of just top 4 because you're just dealing so much damage to people that don't have or like people that didn't hit the Flectobot, that don't have the Pharynx Hooktail, that actually need to level in order to make a comp. Like, let's say Dragons. Dragons weren't even that good in the tournament because we saw that a lot. People were trying to go Dragons, and they just got murdered when they were rolling for it. It's like they were just like rolling for the Dragons. Oh, okay, I found my comp on 3. I'm gonna kill you now.
yeah, you need
Yeah,
that poet early or like triple into
yeah.
poet or
If you hit it, it was still
some
good, of course. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, on the topic of dragons, we had the qualifying player from Group 3. That was so funny. Oh, hey,
Yeah.
show! Thank you so much for the raid. Welcome everyone. Just catching us in the middle of our podcast. Hey. Um, there was actually very funny and I think also cool. It just brought a nice little storyline to the tournament, if you will.
Yeah.
So, Inner was the player that qualified from the third group. Now,
Spoiler alert.
yeah. So sorry, I mean, we've been talking about it the whole time. But yeah, sorry. I mean, should you still want to watch the tournament, anyone, right? The spoiler said. Uh, so there's only one player that made it out of Group 3. And then naturally,
Yeah.
Group 3 had the weakest players because,
Oh, down there.
well,
You
the
know.
strongest players were in Group 1, which means that the
Okay.
weakest players were in Group
I
3.
agree with that.
Right? So that's just a
I don't
natural.
agree. I don't agree with your last statement. I agree with your first statement. Strongest people in group 1, yes. Weakest people in group 2, it's not-
Cons is like, well,
that's a little
they
too
were
many.
also the strongest, right? We'll call them the less
In heart,
strong
you know?
players, right?
They
So
were strong in heart. You know, they fought. They had a knockdown, but they were able to
I mean,
get
it
back
happens,
up,
right?
keep
You have a
fighting.
bad tournament or this or that, right? I put
Yeah.
it this way: the lower performing players during the tournament, right? They were all in Group 3.
Sure. All right.
So,
That's fair.
and essentially what Inner did was just force dragons. Every game dragons were in, and it worked. He actually just got out of his group. When he qualified, it was so hilarious because he just demonstrated how dumb the composition is by literally going AFK 2 turns in a row after he had his comp and just said, "I'm done." Like in a tournament where there's cash on the line, like he literally just like, this comp is so crazy. I have everything. I'm gonna just AFK, and he just AFK'd for 2 turns and beat the other player who was still playing cards. That was
A little sad. Yeah.
it's
but
crazy
yeah.
that it was possible, but he literally just said, "I'm done. This is my comp, and I'm gonna just go AFK and win." So then he made it into the last day. Now I will say there was this team called Hoya, right? At Hoya
Yeah,
Guo,
yeah.
Hoya Weiwei, Hoya Sword, and then Hoya Guo
Go
something.
Shao.
Goshao? Yeah, okay.
Go Shao.
So those 4 players were just so high level. It's very, very, very impressed. They made some insane boards, really good plays, super consistent. I think that all 4 of them made it into the first lobby for day 2,
Yes,
which is
that's true.
crazy. Like their entire team of 4 people in a 24-player tournament were amongst the 8 highest point scorers. Wow. Respect. And only one of them didn't make it to day 3. And
Yeah,
his games were
that's crazy.
heartbreaking. Like he had such a good start, but then he just went a little bit too ham for Tethys and then fought some unfortunate boards and died. And that was really hard to recover from the date. But Hoya Sword essentially didn't make it because he just had a really, really bad first game. To go to my point, right? So in that lobby of death, Inner still forces just dragons and still does kind of well at the start. Like it started falling apart later and later as there were either no dragon lobbies or, he went for dragons but didn't hit it. But he was up there at the start. It was so crazy. He was just like, hey, let's just keep forcing dragons. This shit is working. So that was so funny to watch. And I'm like, hey, you can't blame him, right? Of course. Like Inner is not I think I think Inner's background is pro standard player, but Inner is not a pro battlegrounds player. I think he was obviously he's strong and he understands the game, right? Otherwise, you don't make it into that last group. But it's like he's not as experienced as the other people in that lobby. So I mean that's obviously your go-to strat is, hey, this is on tier 4. I understand how it works, and it's fairly low risk. Let's just keep doing that. So yeah, that was just a really, really fun storyline to watch that unfold. Unfortunately, did take 8th eventually, but was definitely not in the last place for the most part of that.
He was in the money.
Yeah, he was in the money for a while.
We call that success.
All right. Anyways, what's sort of your main, I guess, gameplay takeaway that you took from the tournament, Collins? Like from watching, was there anything you were particularly impressed with? Or?
Chimera is way better. Mechs can win every lobby, and generally, I don't have to level to 6 if I don't want to. But that doesn't mean I don't do it. But it is something that makes logical sense at some times. It's a different game where like not all the best comps are at 6. Some are at 3, some are at 4. And then Pokey, like Quillboards isn't the best. I guess I came in thinking, oh, Quillboards beat everything, but that's not really true at all. So there's definitely a lot of takeaways. Like demons like were now like a viable option for me to play, and things like that where I wasn't really thinking about that before the tournament.
No, absolutely. I think for me as well, it's how good mechs were and how viable cultist was. The the stuff we saw some people do, right, guys? Because the cool thing about cultist is that it's stealth. So while that is a little bit of a downside for Titus, because when they can't attack your cultists, they're gonna snipe your Titus. So if your taunts are down, they're gonna snipe your Titus. The reason why the stealth is really good is Macaw. So what we saw a lot of people do in the tournament was make a reborn Macaw and use that to proc the cultists. So even if the Macaw got sniped, it was still effectively a third cultist because it would reborn and attack and proc a cultist. And best case scenario, it was two cultists in one, that's so strong. If you play a reborn Macaw on a board that has two cultists, you're effectively running four cultists. So if you're bringing back a huge demon that has reborn Divine Shield, like good luck scamming that, my friend. Like you have to chunk through Divine Shield, reborn, and a bunch of stats. You're not scamming that. Like you're just losing. Like if you don't Bramble Witch the demon, it's over. And in some lobbies, there was no Bramble Witch. And in other lobbies, they either didn't taunt it or they taunt multiple things. So you're still just trying to get lucky at that point. Yeah, it was
Another
tough to
thing
deal
is
with.
like you can also play Hag as well. So even if you don't have Macaw, you can also Hag and have the same basic effects. So it was just very strong in that.
Hag
There's
is
a
more
lot of options.
difficult. Hag the one game
Sure.
that blew us away was when one of the Hoya players switched to Terran hero power, which meant that they just hero powered the demon at the start of the fight. The demon is now dead and therefore remembered by the cultist as the first demon that died, which meant that the cultists could be up super early. Because the demon, like normally if you move your cultists early, they're just gonna die and do nothing. But because the
Yeah.
demon was already in there, the cultists can be early. It doesn't matter. So what happened then was we saw a golden hag hit two cultists after the hero power on the demon, and it was so unbelievably unethical because the hag rebounds.
Spoilers.
Yeah, again, I mean spoilers are ahead, right? So the golden hag reborns both the cultists. The reborn cultist dies, brings back a huge trickster. The cultist reborns, attacks, dies again. Another huge trickster, and then the other cultist dies. Another, like the board is just like huge tricksters everywhere. It was, I mean, pretty much it was just
It was
checkmate.
illegal. I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah. So I said this on the broadcast as well. I think normally there is a play. However much hindsight you need, caster vision, lucky Leroy finds his way exactly to the right. There is a mathematical outcome where, hey, that player could win. Like with this, it's over. This is 0%. Like there is not a single card he can roll. There's not a single card he can play. There's not a single attack that can go right enough. It's over. Like he loses every time. I was so impressed to see such a dominant, because to have like a 100% win, no matter what adaptation your opponent would make at such a level, was so impressive to see. So yeah, that was so strong. It was just yeah, phenomenal.
Yep.
Yep,
Very good.
not much to add. All right, okay, guys.
Nah,
So
we're
yeah,
not spoiling the ending or anything like that. Go watch it. It's really good.
right. Yeah, we won't say. I mean, honestly, if anyone is still watching it and you're still listening, what are you doing, right? I mean, come on, you should have paused this shit a long time ago.
No, yeah. Don't pause. We'll finish this video first, or so. Finish the podcast, then watch it. Yeah. Tell
No,
them
I
to
mean,
leave,
if
Shady.
people have
How dare
said
you?
multiple times spoiler alert and you don't want spoilers, then you should have paused this already. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
You don't mind those spoilers. You just want to finish the podcast. It's all good. I
All
get
right.
it. I do the
Okay.
same.
Anyways, I think we're gonna round it up here, guys.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well,
Fair
I
enough.
mean, unless there's something specific you wanted to cover.
No. We'll talk more next week. The week after
I mean, I'm
that.
super happy to just still dive into something if you had something specific in mind. But
Not too much.
all right, yeah,
I'm
it's
I'm
just
chilling.
yeah, it's just it's there's a lot, guys. It's been a long time. And again, right? It's been my bad. My schedule's been super packed. So the reason why I wanted
Reconnect.
very quickly, yeah, I wanted to start with sort of a smaller podcast because I think in order to properly cover everything that came out, it would have been a 4.5 hour one. If we talk about all the cards, all the patches,
I
the
don't have time for a
tournament.
4.5 hour one.
Yeah,
Shit, man.
exactly, right. So I was like, I want to just get back on the horse and talk. Yeah, we can definitely link you, Sodium, but I guess we'll finish up here. So we'll most likely be back next week, unless again, right, something pops up for me. But I'm
Unless he
gonna,
has a new child
yeah,
in that
they just
time
pop
frame.
up, man. That's how they do it. It's like, oh, there's another one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna do my very best to make it happen for next week. Then we can catch up a little bit more. Maybe do a little bit more technical stuff. Talk about meta, some changes, patches, maybe by then, and get back in the routine. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. It's good to be back.
Take care, everyone. Have a nice, wonderful day. You can catch us anywhere, and then see you next time, and blah blah blah. Like I said.
Alrighty, cool. All right, well that was the podcast, guys.